Dispatching a purchase order in Fiscal. This is a relatively easy process that you will complete after a purchase order that lists you as the buyer has been fully approved and before you make the purchase. There's a few steps in this process. First, you'll receive notice that the purchase order was approved. You'll go into Fiscal and dispatch it. You'll check and make sure that it was a successful dispatchment. And then you'll print or save the purchase order PDF that Fiscal produces for you. Firstly, you'll receive notice the purchase order was approved. If you are the buyer, the person who is listed on the purchase order as the buyer, as the person who will make the purchase, you will have received an email that looks something like this that tells you the purchase order was approved. It is also possible to dispatch someone else's purchase order. For example, if I made a purchase order for John Smith, he's listed as the buyer, but perhaps John Smith can't get to a computer right now. So John Smith calls me and asks me to go in and dispatch his purchase order for him so he can go make the purchase. In that case, I will have not received any notification that the purchase order is ready to dispatch. John Smith has to call me or email me, give me the purchase order ID or some other way of finding the purchase order in Fiscal and let me know that it needs to be dispatched. Also in that case, John Smith will be reconciling or receiving the purchase as the last step after he's made the purchase, and I will have to send him the purchase order PDF that prints at the end. Generally, it's best if the buyer dispatches their own purchase order rather than asking somebody else to do it for them. It's pretty easy, so it shouldn't be that hard for the buyer to do that. Also, if you are the buyer, when you log into Fiscal, you'll see an indication here in the top right corner of the screen. There's a little flag that will have a number on it, telling you there's something you need to do. Unfortunately, once you've clicked that flag, the number goes away. So then you may not notice that you have something you have to do. So it's a good idea to check and make sure there's nothing going on. I click on it. A little window slides in. I see I have some alerts. This is where your notification that your purchase orders are ready to be dispatched will appear. It's telling me a few things is going on here. This is the one I want to dispatch right now, purchase order 197. So now we can move on to the actual dispatching process. Click on the link to the purchase order that you want to dispatch. A little page will open here that tells you a bit about what this purchase order is, confirm that the ID is correct, and then click on Edit PO. And Fiscal will take you to the actual purchase order. But at this point, if you have any changes, you can't do anything to change this purchase order. All you want to do is check that dispatch method in this drop-down is set to print and click the dispatch button. You'll get this pop-up that's called dispatch options. Check to make sure that these are the options it shows. Output destination type must say web. Output destination format must say PDF. This checkbox at print PO item description must be checked. The one below it, print copy, must not be checked. Please make sure it's not checked. If this box is checked, it causes errors in Fiscal. Click OK. You'll get a little pop-up. You can click No on that. You'll get another pop-up. You have initiated the dispatching process in Fiscal now, and Fiscal is running this in the background to do whatever it is Fiscal does to dispatch the purchase order. The next step you're going to have is to check and make sure that Fiscal dispatched it correctly. Ordinarily it will, but sometimes if Fiscal is running a lot of processes, it can take some time for the dispatching process to complete. So one way that we can check it is by recording this number here. In my case, for this dispatching process, it's 4609195. Write it down. You won't need this number forever. And click OK. So now we'll check that Fiscal did indeed dispatch your purchase order correctly. There's two ways to do it. You can go back and look at the purchase order itself, or you can use the process monitor, which is what that number you just wrote down will be used for. Method 1, look at the purchase order itself. You'll need to look it up here. You can use the purchase order ID if you have it. I think that's mine. I click search. And it pops it right back up for me. This is where I just was. You see the dispatch button here is now grayed out. And up here in purchase order status, it tells me dispatched. It was successful. The other way to check and see if it was successful is to use the process monitor. For that, you have to go to the main menu, People Tools, Process Scheduler, Process Monitor. This is where that number that you just wrote down from that little pop-up will be used, because it doesn't tell you your purchase order ID here, it just tells you the process. You can see I've done 3 dispatching processes today, and the number I just wrote down ended in 195. There it is. I go to the right, look for these 2 words, success and posted. That is the other way you check that it was dispatched successfully. The last step is to print or save the PDF of the actual purchase order that you just dispatched. Go back to Fiscal, go to Main Menu, Reporting Tools, Report Manager. Again, first go to the Administration tab. Now, you will again look for the process instance number, but for some reason on this screen, 1 has been added to whatever number you had. My number ended in 195, so now it shows me it ends in 196. Click on the link next to your number under the description, and your purchase order will open. Now you need to save it or print it to PDF, the same way you might save a receipt from Amazon. You just want to save it onto your computer. I usually use Control-P. Then make sure your destination is Adobe PDF. You can click print. You also may be able to use this little download button where it asks you where you want to save it. And I will drop it in the folder where I have the other documents associated with this purchase. I'll change the name, Purchase Order 197, and save it as Adobe PDF. Make sure you save this where you can find it again, because you'll need it for your final step in the process, which is the reconciliation or receiving process. If you are dispatching for someone else who's going to go and do the buying, for example, if I am making this purchase order for John Smith, who's going to go and buy it, I have to email this PDF to John Smith because he will need it when he does the receiving or reconciliation process. Now, you've completed all the steps. You can go to the supplier and make your purchase.